Druids are the well-known people who worship the three and the triangle, and they have their own trinity. You know you're talking the Arya of northern India because they have their Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. That Trimurti, that concept is all over the ancient solar cults and stellar cults of the world. That's just one small anecdote. But I do believe their ideology, their pantheon, their cosmology was much more balanced than what the Atonists came up with.
So the Atonists came up with a solo worship of what is perceived as the male aspect, as the sun.
Absolutely.
And so this became monotheism.
Absolutely.
And as a result, it wiped out, and it was intended to wipe out any of the earth, essentially what is the word I'm looking for when you're talking about the more balanced natural
the matriarchal
order of the religions of the day.
Sure.
So it was intended specifically to wipe that out.
Aggressively so. In fact, all monotheism, as many people like Leonard Schlein have pointed out, is aggressive from point go. It is exclusionary, not inclusive. You see, in the period before the Atonists rose every other culture, Phoenician, Semitic, Cretan, Grecian, Hyksos, whatever, all of these people basically lived together in harmony. They could worship in harmony, and they saw commonality between their various gods. In fact, many gods are the same god under different names. Mm-hmm. When the Atonists come along and they make this absolutely, they were henotheistic, in the sense that they picked one god from many, because Aton did, as a god, predate Akhenaton. He was worshipped by Akhenaton's forefathers.
Right.
Tutmosis, I think one of them was an Atonist as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were there. But he selected this god of light and lionized him more and promoted this. And by doing that was very aggressively exclusionary. And this included the feminine aspects, the matriarchal cults also.
And at the same time, that period, that 18th dynasty, was known for perpetuating artwork for the first time even, where the mother, the father, and the children are all depicted together, but under the rays of the sun.
But that's bogus, exactly. This is a propaganda, you see. And don't forget, it was only his family.
Yeah.
The chief Atonists.
Yeah.
Again, it was an exclusionary thing. But see, Akhenaton went so far as to prevent Kiya, his second wife, from even using her full name, which was an Amonist name, mm-hmm. and it meant the vulture goddess, which was again the old pantheons. She could only, he wouldn't allow that. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think he only gave her the permission, finally, and that's because he just had to. She was the only one who was able to bend the rule at all to be able to use some of her titles mm-hmm. that were previously from Amonist mm-hmm. basis. Everybody else was absolutely no way, no deal. I mean, he was very strict. They went to bed as soon as the sun set. They were pathologically afraid of the dark. They cancelled the Osirian cycle of the underworld, which mm-hmm. psychologically, if Freud was sitting here going, well, we have a problem there, for sure. Right? Yeah. You're negating the dark side right away. So don't you see when I would say that there's a psychopathy involved, I can back that up. Mm-hmm. I can back that up. If you are denying the underworld cycle, you're cancelling out the dark side, even the physical darkness. That is as good a definition of schizoid as I could possibly come up with. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's people locked up here, raving lunatics operate on that level. So this man was a pharaoh, but with megalomania, with a psychopathic. But he had the power, you see, to change Egypt and change ultimately the world, because, as we hope to get into, his descendants ended up back in the ancient homeland.
So, okay, let's say Nefertiti, they had their 6 daughters. Mm-hmm. Let's go to Mesa Way back to Ireland, and you're saying that Nefertiti may have been also what appears to be of Caucasian heritage as well.
I think she was a member of what is, to be specific about it, she was a Scythian, what's known as a Scythian.
And can you explain what that is? Scythian,
technically, is a Celt. One of their homelands was in Turkey, but they were known to be, the Irish annals clearly tell you that they were European, but because of these catastrophes, they were displaced. These groups were in all sorts of different places. There's a city called Scythopolis in Galilee, which is, purported to be a Scythian capital, So basically in Galilee they were settled. In Turkey they were. In Jordan they were. And all through Turkey and Europe. In Anatolia, Cappadocia, these were their headquarters. The reason why we think, although I think I'm the only one who thinks she's Scythian, but as you say, the rumor was that she may have had Western people, Lorraine Evans and a few other scholars have sort of dabbled in that. Is it just the look of her face?
Yes, she does look very distinctly different than the other queens of that
That's right. And also no ancestry, no history. Right. It's like it's been suppressed or whatever. To me, it's a no-brainer because her chief daughter, his nickname was Scotia. Scythians weren't called Scythians in Scythian times. They were called the Scuts. Okay. In their own era. They were also called Messagete. They were also called Saga or Shaka, which means stag, the stag man. Zaka, Staga, Saga, where we get the modern words sage. So they were the sages, they were the wise ones. So even then, they took a name that meant the wise ones. You're dealing with the wise ones here. They're descendants of the Arya, ultimately. Before they became Atonists, they were of basically the same gang of people I'm talking about, the Arya, the Druids, okay? Although they became, what I believe, corrupted. By the time they became Atonists in Egypt, they were garnered. Yeah.
Okay.
So Scota's own nickname, she was really called Meritatan, which means the beautiful one of Aton, right?
Yes.
We get the biblical word Mary from the Egyptian Meri, you know, and I think there's a connection to the plant myrrh, is where we get the word Mary. Ralph Ellis and others think it actually just means the beautiful one, and it's the origin of Mary in the Bible.
Yes.
So Meritaten's nickname is the name of the Scythian people, and her mother's Nefertiti, the beautiful one who has come, right, with her aquiline features, and even Adolf Hitler said, I think she's Western, you know. It's pretty obvious, right? So these characters were Scythian, Egyptian, Akhenaton's own family. After the cataclysms, after the famine that happened in Egypt, after the displacement, or let's say expulsion of Akhenaton, they needed to leave. And they took refuge amongst a group called the Hyksos, who are also Scythian in my view. These Hyksos have now been 100% proven to be the same people as the Israelites. There is no doubt about it, and there can't be in the mind of any sane reader at all.